In the early days when I had just started playing D&D with my friendly neighborhood DM Theron, we had a player in the party who was playing a rogue. Every other session he would just randomly split up from the party following some NPC for no reason whatsoever. For me, this became a huge problem. It became such a huge problem that I thought that this game is not for me. Now, we don't have to spend much time on the internet before we come across the shibboleth. Don't split the party. It's common wisdom, but I ask you to think, is it really that bad? How often do we come across situations in movies or fiction where the party is split in two different groups and each of them are trying to do two separate tasks? Very often. Why do you think that is? Yep, because it creates drama. It's very dramatic. It is intense. It has a lot of tension in those scenes. The resources are limited. And I guarantee you, if your party actually does that is split off into two different groups, each trying to do something different, I guarantee you that there will be a moment for each one of the groups where they will go, oh crap, I wish X was with us. But of course, X is with the other group. So right off the bat, you know that I don't have anything against splitting the party, but you also know that I have strong opinions about how we should go about doing it. Let's take the example that I gave you in the beginning. The rogue would just wander off on his own without any consideration to the rest of the party. He would just go off following some NPC or try to steal from a random nobleman on the street or go infiltrate a cult for no reason whatsoever. Or even if there is a reason, he never talks to the other players. He just went off on his own. We had rolled for our stats and somehow he had ended up with some Herculean stats. He was good at everything that he did. Which is one of the reasons that I think I am pretty much done with rolling stats for my DMing career. If I am the DM, you are not rolling stats. You're either taking the standard array or you're doing the point buy system. But that's the topic for another video. However, because of these Herculean stats, he would almost always succeed at whatever he was trying to do, and the rabbit hole would just keep going deeper. I kid you not, there would be hours in real life when the rest of the players are just sitting around while this one person is playing with the DM. In a previous video, we have already established that I'm a bad player, and as a result, about half an hour into this, I would start checking out of the game. Here's the thing. The same me would have been perfectly okay sitting out for the whole session if the damn thing was planned. If we had planned together that we want this rogue to go follow this NPC, or go steal this map from the nobleman, or go infiltrate this cult in the ugly underbelly of this city, I would have been 100% okay, because we would just be sitting back, watching him while he does his thing. It would be dramatic, exciting, and we are all invested in whatever he's doing. So the player investment and engagement is inbuilt because they were involved in the planning. Now, I am only one player, and not a very good one at that, but I believe that there is a lesson to be learned here. DMs, even your best players, will check out if they haven't been involved in the game for an unreasonably extended period of time. What I am trying to say is that absolutely go ahead and split the party, but please make sure that there's a different objective for each group that the party is split in. Matt Colville, he says that he's perfectly okay with players splitting the party as long as they are willing to pay the price, which is sitting back and watching other people play. But I strongly disagree with that. It is part of the DM's responsibility to handle split parties, but it is also part of the player's responsibilities to give the DM something to work with. I have found that it is very hard for the DM to come up with content if one half of the party follows a trail of breadcrumbs, while the other half of the party is just sitting at a bar, doing basically nothing. This is where the player responsibility comes in. If you split the party, please ensure that both groups have some objectives. There's a reason for the split. They both have something to do that they think will be faster, easier, / whatever the reason is to go separately. This way, the DM can switch scenes between the two parties and keep things interesting and everyone is engaged. Now, I understand that this is not always possible, but this is where the player buy-in comes into place. If the group as a whole has come up with a plan to split the party and say send the rogue or the bard or whatever group is appropriate for this mission, that they're gonna go do the thing while the rest of the party is gonna sit and wait. They need to understand that, well, there's no adventure to be had at the tavern where you're sheltering. The focus will be on this other group who's out there doing things. This is essentially reiterating the point that I had just said that I disagree with. That is because this is a party decision and this is a special case scenario. This should not be the default. The default should be both the groups have something to do. This is a special scenario where one group is like, okay, you know what, DM? We need this to be done. The three of us, the paladin, the fighter, and the barbarian, are not the quiet ones. So let's send the quiet ones to go steal that jewel from the nobleman's casket. We're just gonna be waiting at the bar, all chill, all just like, just skip over us. Just focus on that group. We're engaged. We're having fun. Now let's talk about the DM's responsibility. Well, to be honest, you just have one job. Keep switching between the two groups. Switch the scenes. Give them something to think about. Give them something to do, something to ponder on. And then switch the scene to the other group and engage them. And while these people are thinking, you play with them, or they might be planning or having a quiet side conversation. You are playing with this group. And then when something they have to decide on, you switch back to this group. They're thinking, they're planning, they're plotting. You are engaging this group. Now, I give myself real-life timers of about 15 minutes with this group and that group, but obviously that's more like a guideline. It's not like I have to stop at exactly 15 minutes and switch. Also, that time is absolutely not hard and fast. You can give yourself any time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you wish. I do recommend, however, that this time should not be more than 30 minutes for a group, because that's kind of when people start to lose interest and start getting on their phones, getting distracted, checking out of the game. One thing I would like to mention here is I do not think that the way Matt Mercer does it is the right way to do it. Okay, let me rephrase that before I get a ton of hate. I do not think the way that Matt Mercer does it is ideal for a generic table. He usually spends an hour, hour and a half with one group and then switches to the other group and spends an hour, hour and a half with them. Most players are not the Critical Role cast, so we have to meet them at their terms. They're not getting paid for this. It's not their company. They're not making millions of dollars out of this. They are giving you their time, so we need to keep them engaged. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Matt Mercer is bad. Don't do that. It's wrong. That's not my point. My point is, let's meet the players on their terms. So, all this grand advice is great and all, but let's take some examples that had happened in my game. Because I strongly believe that examples help understand whatever the advice is way better than the blah blah. So in my game, in one of the situations, one of the PCs, Ryan's character, had to go steal something from a very powerful person who was transporting it from point A to point B. The A-B doesn't matter. Ryan decided that he would take Megan's character and Jonathan's character with him on this mission. So they went off on the mission. This left Theron's character and Paul's character in the city with basically nothing to do. I asked Ryan and the other two that, okay, so what's your plan? Like, how are you going to go about stealing this item from this person? And they said that they were going to plan and ambush him at some point. So what I did was I handed them the battle mat and the wet erase markers and said, here's the map. Why don't you draw me the battle map where you're going to try and ambush this person? I gave them some restrictions that, okay, there are no huge tall mountains here. There might be a few knolls. That's about it. There are no huge forests. There might be a few scattered trees here and there, so it cannot be a forest ambush. Things like that. And they went away, started planning, and started drawing the map that they're going to be fighting on, while I was free to engage Theron and Paul's character. They went through the whole city, they went to the library, they went to temples, they went to an orphanage, they went to a potion shop, they went to a blacksmith. I think that's where Paul picked up his signature shield that he's still carrying. It's been like, I don't know, they're level 15 now, this was probably level 4. So a lot happened there. They were engaged, they were happy to do it. Half an hour later, the other group was ready with their ambush, and we switched the scenes to them, and we played out their fight. Everyone was happy. So this is one way to do it. Give one half of the players something to do that engages the players, not necessarily the characters, so that the players can think about it, they worry about it, they plan, they plot, they scheme, whatever they're doing while you engage the other half of the group, and then you can give them something to do while you go engage the other characters. That's one way to do it. Here's another example. The same party was, a few weeks later, framed for murder and essentially driven out of the city, and there were like wanted posters with their faces and names all over the place. So they were hiding outside the city in the slums, but they had to make their way through the city to get to the docks and basically book passage on a ship that would take them far away from the city. They decided that Theron's character, who's the rogue and the stealthiest one, this is not the same rogue as the one in the example, by the way, this is a different rogue. So Theron's character, Rogue, Kite in the Storm, and Megan's character, Societh Kastara, the Druid, they would go into the city and book passage on a ship. I think Megan wild-shaped into a cat, and Theron was carrying the cat on his shoulders, himself being a tabaxi. It was just funny. They went through the city, avoiding town guards, negotiating with some of them, deceiving and distracting with like cat shenanigans, and they finally managed to book the passage on the ship and come back safely. While all this was happening, the other three players really did not have anything to do. But this was one of those situations. This is the second type of splitting the party, where the group as a whole comes to the conclusion that this needs to be done, and if we all go, someone's going to roll bad and we're going to fail on this mission. It was better to send the two best suited people for this mission to go ahead while the others sit back, wait, and watch the gameplay. This was the second situation. This can be done, but I think if this happens, it's kind of on the DM to not spend hours on this one group. I think the whole going to the docks, booking a passage on the ship, and coming back was done in approximately an hour, not longer than that. Sometimes you cannot do it. You have to give yourself permission to break all of these rules. These are just generic cases. Just make sure that you are aware of these while you're breaking them. That's all I'm saying. So that's the second way to do it. One half of the group does something, the other half sits and waits. Now, for a perfect example of scene switching. The same party, many levels later, finds themselves in Azagrat, Grazd's realm, in the Abyss. They were following one of their enemies into the Argent Palace, which is Grazd's palace with 66 marble or silver towers, one of those. And the druid, wild-shaped into a swarm of beetles, clung on to this enemy's cloak and got carried into the palace. The rest of the party are outside and have no idea how they're going to get into Grazd's palace. As far as I could find out, wild shape is not magic, so it doesn't get dispelled or like magically suppressing auras do not do anything on it. So the druid was actually able to cling to the cloak of this enemy all the way into Grazd's throne room. She found herself alone in Grazd's throne room, the Dark Prince, a demon lord, with 7 Marilith bodyguards, and she's watching in horror as she sees that Grazd, looking at this person up and down, and his eyes rest on the swarm of beetles on his cloak, and she realizes that Grazd has true sight. He knows exactly who she is. Switch scene. That was a cliffhanger of a switch scene. That worked really well in that moment. Obviously, the other group is now trying to sneak into the palace, but they're having terribly bad rolls and comical failures. Also, at the same time, since Azagrat is a realm of indulgence, the gnome wizard had somehow found some kind of drugs and is now high on drugs. So he just like randomly teleports around for no apparent reason. Ultimate D&D player shenanigans is going on. Everyone is laughing and having a good time, and then the switch scenes. In an instant, the whole Zoom call went from laughing to silent. Because this scene was so intense, so scary. You were in Grazd's throne room with no backup. That's how scary it was. This is the kind of drama I'm talking about that can happen when you split the party. Please, 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 I implore you to try it once in a while. If you are nervous, talk to the DM about it. Pitch them the idea that, hey, we are thinking that sometimes we can split the party and go about doing this. What do you think about this? Give it a shot. Give it a try. I think if you never split the party, you are missing out on some really good dramatic moments. Also, I had, as a DM, once forced a party split, but that experience has been documented in another video. I'll put the card somewhere up here. You can go check out that video. It talks in details about how this party split and how I was handling them. That's it, folks. That's the video. This is about splitting the party. And although it is very good advice that when they say don't split the party, I'm saying that there are exceptions to that video. So give it a try. Go ahead and split your party.